Can you see that area behind me beneath the red tinted sky? That is what's left of Raccoon City after the military fired a missile at it.
Within the dark corners of America's worst memories, there lies the Raccoon City Destruction Incident of 1998. A chaotic viral outbreak, unleashed by the corrupt and secretive Umbrella Corporation, culminated in the destruction of this industrial Midwestern town. Coupled with the full-feature documentary, The Lost City of America, this series aims to give you, the public, a more in-depth look at some of the more important events, people, and information surrounding this tragedy. Information that was previously kept hidden from the public until now. For this episode, we decided to take part 2 of The Lost City of America and put together the key moments that make up Raccoon City's final week in existence. These excerpts are in their original form and allow you to view the 2-hour-long part 2 in a more condensed fashion, starting at September 24th and ending at October 1st, 1998. On the early hours of Thursday, September 24th, the Pentagon, having also been briefed by Umbrella, sent out a force to assess the spread of the virus throughout Raccoon City. Umbrella was, of course, selective in what details and information they shared. The government remains wary, knowing that the company does research on dangerous viruses, but focuses on the assessment of the situation instead. By now, the T-virus has been coursing through the city's water supply for a little more than 24 hours. Later estimates indicate that roughly half of Raccoon City's population was infected over the course of September 23rd, with even more becoming infected overnight and into the morning of September 24th. People becoming sickened from exposure to the water began to flood the Raccoon City General Hospital around midday of the 23rd and non-stop into the 24th. It was later discovered that the first cases of T-virus infected people actually came into Raccoon General Hospital as early as September 10th. Though Umbrella succeeded in keeping these early cases a secret, the situation at the hospital became critical on the 24th.
Excuse me, please. I'm sorry, I have to go.
Violent incidents involving infected persons also began to skyrocket.
I went to go reach out to help her, and she bit me in the arm, scratched on my face, and I just took off.
It wasn't long into the 24th that the hospital became overwhelmed. To cover up the viral outbreak and to quell any panic, the Pentagon told the press they were investigating radioactivity in the area and began working with the RPD and the Raccoon City Fire Department in evacuating civilians from contaminated areas.
He also wants to stress the need for calm and respect for law and order. The quicker people can get off the streets and into their homes, the quicker the appropriate federal and state agencies can reach these troubled areas.
By this time, people infected by the virus have begun to transform into zombies. Sporadic events of violence began cropping up, but the media either ignored these or played them off as civilians protesting against the sudden forced evacuations of their neighborhoods. The United States Army National Guard was brought in, limited at first, to assist in evacuations. The first Chinooks containing evacuees took off on September 24th at 10 a.m. after staging at the Raccoon City Zoo and Raccoon City Park, among other smaller public venue locations. The situation during the first day was immensely confusing, and many people continued with their ordinary routine, despite the increasing violence and selective evacuations occurring around them. Local media did not cover the evacuations, mainly focusing on the annual fair and Raccoon Sharks football game, which had seen a few moments of violence during the match.
There was a disruption earlier at today's football match between the Raccoons.
But the situation was far worse. The majority of the stadium attendees at this point were either turning or had turned into zombies and had begun flooding into downtown. A group of 8 citizens were present in downtown at the time, later becoming known to the world as the outbreak survivors. Around 9 p.m. that evening, an Army Chinook helicopter carrying evacuees crashed almost as soon as it lifted off the ground, due to several sick passengers succumbing to the T-virus while on board. In direct response to this tragedy, the U.S. government stepped in and decided that it would quarantine the city, using both National Guard and active Army personnel.
By creatures who feast upon the flesh. Since convening this conference of the Presidential Cabinet, the FBI, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the CIA has not produced any public information coverage. Look for the name of the rescue station nearest you and make your way to that location as soon as possible.
The body should be disposed of at once, preferably by cremation.
The situation in Raccoon City would rapidly deteriorate overnight, as by this point, more than half the population has either been evacuated, killed, or zombified.
Who knows if this report will ever be transmitted? Communication is at best limited. The city, it seems, is being overrun with man-eating creatures, and they're coming. Run!
Yesterday, just before dawn, the Pentagon announced that radioactive waste has been leaked throughout Raccoon City. In accordance with U.S. safety regulations, the city has been placed under quarantine, and the Army has been sent in to investigate and control the situation.
The United States Army quickly surrounded the city and set up roadblocks, sealing off any escape or entry. A no-fly zone was also established, in which only military, umbrella, RPD, and Raccoon Fire Department helicopters were permitted to fly. Just like the majority of Raccoon City, the military was largely unaware of the situation's true nature. Only 2 days after the initial outbreak, the RPD was already in dire straits. The force was taking on too much, all while suffering a steady increase in loss of personnel on the ground. A group of outbreak survivors fled the evacuation center that the Raccoon City Fire Department had brought them to, having been overrun by zombies, which now filled the streets of downtown. They fled towards the outskirts of the city and headed into the forests of the Arklay Mountain region. The group was accompanied by Alyssa Ashcroft, a Raccoon City reporter who also had ties with Ben Bertolucci and the missing reporter Kurt Diamond. Hoping they can find shelter somewhere nearby, the survivors make their way down a forested path. Just after midnight, Chief Irons ordered a majority of the remaining RPD force to confront the zombie hordes head-on. This left the police station occupied by only a handful of officers and civilians. Around the same time, the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, or UBCS, deployed 4 platoons into the city, comprised primarily of mercenaries and former Soviet Union soldiers. Despite their numbers, training, and equipment, the police force was quickly destroyed. This event became known as the RPD Massacre. A majority of the UBCS force was quickly destroyed as well. Though the defeat of the force wasn't expected at such a scale, Umbrella was secretly recording the mercenaries' battles with the BOWs in the city. Umbrella Europe would also seize upon the opportunity, deploying multiple MA-121 Hunter variants into the city that night. They would also deploy their Nemesis T-type into the city, by air, programming it with orders to hunt down the surviving STARS team members and eliminate them. Later in the evening, the Raccoon City General Hospital became non-operational. It had been taking on fatalities to its staff since before the water contamination on the 23rd. The staff had opted to remain at the hospital from the start, in a valiant and frantic effort to develop a cure for the T-virus that they had been trying to develop for several weeks. Surprisingly, the staff actually succeeded in developing the vaccine, but failed to vaccinate themselves in time. Umbrella would have the hospital destroyed 2 days later, after somehow discovering its staff had developed a successful vaccine. However, on this night, some of the outbreak survivors passed through the hospital, just before it fully succumbed to the encroaching undead. The city is now lost to the T-virus BOWs. The outbreak survivors were forced into the city subway system, as the military prepared to retreat its forces back to the outskirts of the city. Jim Chapman, one of the outbreak survivors, was a Kite Brothers Railway employee, having been assigned to the South Raccoon Street station. Trusting in his knowledge of the station, he led a group of outbreak survivors there in a split decision moment to get off of the streets. The South Raccoon Street station was a subway station located underneath South Raccoon Street, a major road in Raccoon City. Built and operated by the Kite Brothers Railway, it was one of 4 remaining subway stations used in Raccoon City. The once bustling subway system sported 8 subway stations, but the recession of the 1990s took a heavy toll on the subway system. Given that the subway system was connected to the sewage system, the station would prove to be just as deadly as the city above ground. On the evening of the 27th, a familiar STARS team survivor decides it's time to make her last escape, realizing that by now, the city is completely lost. She escapes her overrun apartment building, but is quickly overwhelmed by the undead populace outside and retreats into a warehouse, where she would wait out the night with another survivor, Dario Rosso. Around the same time, surviving UBCS Group Echo Team is given orders to clear downtown and secure the St. Michael's Clock Tower for use as an evacuation zone. They would fail in this mission, the aftermath of which would be discovered by Jill the following night. Back at the RPD, only a dozen police officers remain, and they too were suffering losses due to a lack of adequate equipment and manpower. With the chief missing and the majority of the police force having been wiped out the night before, desperate times have befallen the survivors within the RPD. Kevin and his group reached the police station in the early morning hours, surrounded by the undead, with a handful of surviving police officers remaining. Officer Marvin Branagh is attempting to formulate an escape plan, quite the opposite of what Kevin and the survivors had hoped for.
So I'll get help and come back, right? Looks like it's a race against time.
Despite the letdown, Kevin feels guilty for not being at the station when it all started, and decides to aid his fellow officers. If they can all escape the station together, their group would become much larger, giving them more of a fighting chance on the streets.
September 28th, daylight. The monsters have overtaken the city. Somehow, I'm still alive.
As another day breaks over Raccoon City, Jill Valentine decides it's time to make a move.
Okay, we've got to get out of here.
Having been hunkering down in a warehouse overnight with survivor Dario Rosso, Jill understands rescue isn't coming and wants to try and escape the city with the help of daylight.
But there isn't gonna be any rescue. We have to get out of here.
No! I'm not going anywhere. I'd rather starve to death in here than be eaten by one of those undead monsters. Now leave me alone!
We're saved. Down here! It's finally over. Huh? No!
Jill! Jill! Hang in there! What have I done? I'm sorry, Jill. Please, wake up!
Carlos, having secured the clock tower building and fortified an inner room within, decides to wait out the night and watch over Jill. The city around them continues to crumble into the next day, so much to the point that the government decides it's time to pull back the military forces quarantining the city. This military retreat would cause the roads leading to the city to be opened, roads that two certain people will use to enter Raccoon City on the following night. As day breaks, the U.S. Army, under official orders, is under full retreat from the city, attempting to rescue any remaining civilians under their care. However, during the retreat, the Pentagon ordered 2 Army Delta Force squadrons to deploy into Raccoon, with the task of reaching 2 key facilities in search of evidence against Umbrella. This would be the U.S. government's last-ditch effort to try and place blame on Umbrella for the entire incident.
Echo 6, continue
on foot to City Hall for intel on the location of Umbrella's facilities.
Several blockades along the highways and smaller roads on the outskirts were also abandoned, having been weakened by countless attacks from zombies and BOWs. One of these highways left open would later that night be used by two people to enter Raccoon City. Claire Redfield,
Finally here.
and Leon S. Kennedy.
What have we got here?
Leon, Claire, and Sherry managed to escape the city at dawn on the 30th of September, along with various pieces of information regarding Umbrella's secret programs. Leon and Sherry would quickly be found and detained by U.S. military personnel still in the area. However, Claire had split from the other two survivors prior to them being detained.
After that, Claire set out alone to find her brother, and Sherry and I were rescued by U.S. government agents.
We have the authority to do as we please with you. You and that girl.
Just leave her out of this. She's an innocent.
An innocent who carries the G antibody. Don't worry. We're taking very good care of her. Bottom line is, you have the experience we're looking for. So if you want this to end peacefully, you really have only one choice. Work for us.
And just like that, I found myself in the service of the U.S. government.
Later on that evening, the two U.S. Army Delta Force teams would meet their fates. One team is destroyed at the Raccoon City Hospital as they attempt to secure any samples of the T-virus antigens, while the other team is wiped out at Incineration Disposal Plant P-12A after battling with 5 T-103 Mr. X tyrants.
Shit.
As the United States government begins weighing options to end the Raccoon City incident, the fourth survivor of September 30th awakens and makes his escape.
This is Nighthawk. Come in, Alpha. Alpha, do you read?
Nighthawk, this is Hunk from Alpha Team.
Man, I thought you were all wiped out. I've been trying
I'm at point K-12. Need info on my extraction.
Throughout the course of the week, a congressional committee was formed to discuss how best to end the viral outbreak in Raccoon City. It would be later revealed that, now deceased, former Senator Ron Davis was part of that committee. This was, of course, before the discovery of his insider trading with the former Will Pharma Corporation. This information won't be revealed until the East Asian bioterror attacks of 2012 and 2013, but a man named Derek C. Simmons, a member of a European secret society known only as the Family, was able to convince the committee to destroy Raccoon City entirely. It is believed, but never proven, that the Family used or uses American politics and influence to sway world power in their favor. If it were discovered that the US government all but enabled this disaster in Raccoon City, it would weaken American influence worldwide, something Derek Simmons was made to ensure would never happen. The solution would be a tactical nuclear strike on the city, which would most certainly destroy the outbreak and its creations. But this would also destroy any evidence of Umbrella's bioweapons projects in the city, also covering up any evidence of the government's involvement in Umbrella.
It's coming!
Yeah. It's the end.
Can you see that area behind me beneath the red tinted sky? That is what's left of Raccoon City after the military fired a missile at it.
Here are today's results. It's been 6 months, but the number's still the same.
6 months after the bombing, a government exclusion zone was still in force around Raccoon City's ruins, with a research station established in the center of the ruins. At the time, the government was known to be collecting surviving T-virus samples from the ruins, but for what purpose has yet to be revealed. At this point, and for many years to come, the existence of the T-virus was publicly denied.